Ugandans believe the legitimately elected president of Uganda from the outcome of the January 14, 2021 election. The floor is yours, Bobiwine.
Thank you very much for having me, Professor Alimadi, and I'm sending greetings to all of you comrades here. The issues have been detailed by Comrade Nakwede, who was the candidate in the recently concluded Kayunga by-election, where it is clear that she won. We are not just saying she won, but it's clear that she won. But again, what happened in Kayunga recently goes further to confirm what happened in January this year in Uganda, where the internet was switched off, all our campaign team arrested, and even when all that happened, we still floored General Museveni, and he ordered Justice Yabakama, who is the head of the Electoral Commission, to simply announce him as winner. Now, this played again in Kayunga recently, where amid this intimidation, having put me under house arrest to block me from campaigning, where General Museveni was going to campaign using taxpayers' money, having put to jail, having jailed members of parliament, all the leaders that we sent to supervise the vote. Still, the people of Kayunga stood their ground. They did what we encouraged them to do. They were vigilant, they supervised the vote, and even if there was so much ballot stuffing, still Harriet Nakwede Kafero emerged winner. Unfortunately, General Museveni would not take that, like Comrade Nakwede said, having announced that whatever the circumstances, the NRM would decide who would be the leader of Kayunga district, not the people of Kayunga district. So consequently, they announced the wrong person, that they had won. This goes further to just highlight a few of the atrocities that are being committed in Uganda, the absolute disrespect of democracy, the disregard of the rule of law, and General Museveni imposing himself and all the leaders that he chooses for the people of imposing them on the people of Uganda. Like our Secretary General just mentioned, I will only reassert that we are calling upon the international community not to constantly come off as a partner in crime. We are fighting not only the impunity of General Museveni, we are fighting not only the Uganda police that is supposed to take care of the people, but instead is oppressing the people. We are not only fighting the Uganda military, but we are fighting all that is supporting the NRM regime. While we fight the corrupt dictator, we're also fighting the grenades that are coming from France. We are fighting the guns that are coming from Czech Republic. We are fighting the helicopters that are coming from Russia. We are fighting the cars that are coming from Germany. We are fighting the training that is offered by the United States and the UK. We are fighting the spy network that is provided by Israel. We are fighting the bribes that are provided by the IMF. So we are fighting against our own resources. I want the international community to know that it is the bloodline for General Museveni. General Museveni would not be able to oppress the people of Uganda. He will not be able to massacre the people of Uganda. His military would not be able to do all the illegal and immoral things that they are doing if they were not supported by the international community. They would not be able to spy, to listen in on, violate our privacy if they were not supported by the Israeli technology. And as all of you are aware that not just we that are fighting for freedom in Uganda, but even the diplomats, nobody is safe under the Museveni dictatorship. So we call upon the international community to remember that we are also human beings, to know that the standard of human rights is not supposed to be measured according to the economy of the country. We are just as human beings as the countries from the development partners. We are just as human as other countries where 2, 3, 4 people are murdered, and it is probed to its logical conclusion. While General Museveni is massacring people, while he is detaining political opponents, while he is abusing and violating elections with impunity, he is still being fed by the international community, and that is why we request that it should stop. I thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to the next speaker, who is Joel Senyonyi, I'd just like to clarify one or two things. Harriet Nakwede spoke of the DR forms. For non-Ugandans who may not be familiar with what that is the declaration of results, which is the tallying of the total votes earned by each candidate in each of the precincts. So that is what she was referring to. Bobiwine mentioned the spying assisted by Israel. That was a major story recently in the New York Times, when the New York Times reported that with the use of Israeli technology and spyware, the regime was actually conducting spying on the United States Embassy in Kampala, Uganda. So I just wanted to clarify those two items. And now we keep it moving. So we go to Joel Senyonyi, who is the official spokesperson for the NUP party. Joel, the floor is yours. Do we have Joel?
Yes, Professor, thank you so much.
Go ahead. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be joining you, colleagues here in Uganda from the media that are joining us. But really, my president, Bobiwine, the Secretary General, and of course our candidate in Kayunga have clearly adumbrated what happened. For us, really, in many respects, this vindicates us. Because we went through an election in January, and it was clear the blatant brutality. People were killed, many were jailed, the vote rigging, ballot stuffing, the loads of monies that were used, and all these different things. We kept talking about these things, but somehow, there are probably those who thought, well, maybe not, but what happened in Kayunga, because now all the attention was on Kayunga, because the January election was a nationwide election. So the cameras, media, and so on were not able to be everywhere, to see that our agents were being arrested, the brutality. Ballot stuffing and so on. There's just a few.
Joel, your connection is not stable, so we are losing you. You're in and out. Yeah, now we can't hear you at all. Joel, I don't know if you can hear me, but we cannot hear you. I think your connection is not stable.
Okay, I can actually hear you loud and clear. There was just
yeah, I'm sorry, we can't hear you clear, but try again. Let's see how it goes. Continue.
Okay, so really, the point that I was emphasizing is that the Kayunga by-election vindicated us. All that we have been saying, that Museveni deploys brutality, lots of money, the vote rigging and so on, everything got to be seen in clear, broad daylight. And I know Nico is going to display for but also to show here. So we had teams that were at the tally center, and they kept hearing this lady who kept giving an update, a lady called Chobutunji Janet. She's the electoral commission representative in that district. Mm-hmm. So she kept giving updates, I think hourly or that kind of thing. And they combined all the audios and tabulated what updates she was giving all through. And even that update that she was giving every step of the way till the final one, before they took off about 3 hours to say they are sorting out a couple of things, yes. Even her voice shows that our candidate, Nakwede, was by far leading in this election. But Mr. Museveni said, no, I want my candidate to win, and that's the one that will be declared winner. Now, in just 1 minute, one of the things that really have caused Mr. Museveni to have interest in Kayunga, yes, you know, lots of mineral resources in that district, And that's why there's been squabbles over the land in Kayunga. The person who was killed, we believe very strongly that the former LC5 chairperson who belonged to NUP was killed. This was a disabled man. And then on this eventful day, very unfortunate event, you know, he was found hanging. Very smart, there was no flakes and so on. This is a man who was using a crutch to walk, you know, but for them to say that he got up a tree and hang himself and so on, absolute hogwash. We believe this man was killed. And the reason why he was killed is because as an NUP leader in that seat, he was frustrating the land grabbing and all the other evil schemes of the regime. And we believe that's why this man was killed. And now Mr. Museveni said, okay, now that this one is out of the way, I must have my candidate there, my person who belongs to the NRM. And that's why it's been a do or die. But I'm glad that the whole world has seen all these things that are happening. And really, on our part, we are reaching out to the international community to say, let's have a focus on Uganda. Mr. Museveni likes to say Uganda is a sovereign state, so we cannot have interference. Yes, we are a sovereign state. But what does sovereignty mean? Does sovereignty mean that the leader of the country can kill, brutalize people in his country, stifle democracy, etc., as the whole world looks on because we are a sovereign state? No, we are part of the international community. And I believe the rest of the world has a responsibility to Uganda. The same way Uganda has a responsibility to the rest of the world. That's why we are in Somalia, in Sudan, and all these different places, doing all manner of things, and yet those are sovereign states. So we are saying what has begun to be done by the US, would like to see that gear engaged a lot more. Would like to see a lot more targeted sanctions. These sanctions actually bite. I know some Museveni officials like to brush these things off and say, well, I don't give a damn about the sanctions and so on, but they bite. And that's why the most recent sanctions on a general called Kamiho, who has meted out untold suffering to Ugandans on behalf of Mr. Museveni. He had to organize some goons to go to the US embassy to protest and so on. It's because these sanctions bite. So they are not in vain. We pray that there gets to be a lot more of the people surrounding Mr. Museveni, the people that are involved in these acts, electoral commission officials right from the top. Then they'll begin to know that things are serious. Then they'll begin to know that you cannot do whatever you want to do in a manner so wanton. So we hope that the rest of the international community can really extend this help to Ugandans. This really is not for NUP. It is for Ugandans, because it is Ugandans who are being brutalized. It is Ugandans whose democratic space is shrinking by the day. Their voice doesn't count anymore. So we hope that this can be done for the sake of Ugandans. I thank you.
Thank you, Joel. I just want to elaborate on one or two things that Joel also touched upon. He referred to the recent sanctions by the United States against General Abel Candido, who was the leader of what is called the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence, which essentially is the secret police. And he was personally accused by the Treasury Department that issued the sanctions of participating personally in some of the torture and some of the beatings, which included sexual torture, and in fact, including the killings of supporters of the NUP party or anybody who had criticized the government. And that is what Joel was referring to. He also mentioned the issue of sovereignty, and that the regime says no other country has the right to interfere in the affairs of the regime. But the regime is happy to take $1 billion in US taxpayers' money. And I would hope American citizens would say they do have a right in how their taxpayer dollars is spent once it's sent to Uganda. Now, this time, we would like the technical people led by Dr. Nico to perhaps put out the technical display and show some of the images and walk us through it. And then after that, we will invite Bruce Afran to make some comments, and he is the legal counsel. Dr. Nico, could you and David perhaps walk us through the images, screen sharing? David? Dr. Nico?
Yeah, we're just working through it. Sorry, just give us a
Okay,
moment.
thank you. right, sisters and brothers, please, I ask for your patience. Just give them a minute. They will screen share. They will explain some of the data. And then we will get the comment from Bruce Afran. And then we'll quickly open it up for questions from members of the media. And I ask members of the media, please identify yourself and your affiliation before you ask your questions. And since this is a press conference, we will only be taking questions from members of the media. So if you are not a member of the media, I would politely ask you to please unraise your hand. If on the other hand, you're a member of the general public, you're welcome to submit a comment via the chat.